Hello and welcome. In this message, I wanted to continue the message that I've published over the last several weeks on how does a path of ascension look like, what we might be facing on this journey, and how we can work with ourselves to better transition into this ascended version of reality. And so, to begin with, I wanted to say from my human standpoint, my human interpretation, everything that I see and everything that I feel is just bathed in the most beautiful and unequivocal truth of beauty. It is the transitory phase of getting there might not be the most subtle and uh, unharmonious process of being. But what I wanted to say is everything that we're being guided to experience and everything we're being guided into knowing will be absolutely beautiful. And so the transitory phase, regardless of how it looks, is almost irrelevant as long as you can tune in and see what is the end result on the other end of things. What I want to say is there's this large recognition that starts to take place is that when we start to shed off the density that has been keeping us down and suppressed and away from the acknowledgement of our being, right? That density first has to come into light, right? The density that dragged us down and caused us to have a misinterpreted sense of reality, a weighted sense of reality, in order for it to flourish out and then transmute and then become something different. The energy of it has to rise up and be apparent within the circumstances of Earth before it can be transmuted and then reutilized, right? Because the whole point of the transmutation and basically ascensions of the race as you're experiencing right now is to enter into a larger, greater scope of energy. But that energy doesn't come, out of nowhere. It has to come from an upgraded version of an existing form. And so everything that is becoming apparent and is coming to the surface, that is being released from the stuckness of each individual being, right, is simply there to be apparent. So it can be transmuted and reused, upcycled, I guess, into something much greater. And so if you're experiencing confusion, if you're experiencing questioning of what this might lead to, I want to say it leads into absolute beauty. But again, it has to go through a phase of transformation and transmutation in order to get there. And I wanted to point out a different angle to look at things is, even if things don't look as pretty or as, the rainbows and butterfly effect wise, and that we want to interpret them, I want to say that that transitory phase of being is beauty within itself, right? To see humanity, to see each individual soul face for the first time this the separate nature of reality, and find their true calling to see self as true love and oneness as the essence of themselves, right? For the first time, maybe see themselves for what they are as opposed to for the narrative they have been married to or sold themselves on or been forced to believe in. And so there's that beauty in that transitory phase of seeing the two sides of beingness and choosing to let go, to release, to bring to the surface this dark density that we never wanted to have as our truth, but chose for so long. And then see it come up and be rethought of and re-explored and re-released, and then recycled and upcycled into ultimately, through a very gradual and maybe not so pretty progression into the metamorphosis, right, of light into us as a a reborn being that sees things for what they are, sees self for what they are, and then is able to interpret all reality through this new lens of interpretation. So beauty is always in the making. It is always growing, it is always expanding, and it's always progressing itself into the most nuanced and most beautiful ways of being. And I want to say, allow yourself to see things through that beauty of self, through the nature of rebirth, the upcycling, the letting go, and realigning, reliving the truth maybe for the first time. The turmoil sense of being that one has to see themselves in before they choose to see themselves as something different, right? It is beauty within itself. But I promise you, and I want to emphasize that the place where that's all going is ultimate beauty, right? So if you are on the path of ascension, if you're on the path of this knowing, recognize that everybody who's choosing to go there with us will have this amazing interpretation of reality. Because in the long run, there's nothing that is not beautiful, regardless of its form. Because in the long run, everything is working its way towards transmutation and ascension into recognition. And the recognition ultimately flows backwards into recognizing that even in the moments where we did not see beauty in the past, were in fact maybe the moments of the most beautiful sense of self that we could have ever interpreted. Right? Because grace was present, change was taking place, and we were starting to see differently, right? And through this beautiful process of grace, where we get small snippets of working its way into different and different and different and different, and sooner and later that different, we just realize it's just truth, right? There's nothing. The story behind the different is that there's no such thing as different. It's just you simply finally reaching your personal truth. And then, the symbiotic relationship between all of us is that we live in one truth. And that truth is beauty. And how we interpret that from time to time and day to day is interesting, because it only leads us to one recognition. And that's recognition is the inevitable coalition of all things and all being into oneness. And so, yeah, if times get tough, just realize that is the natural progression of things: recognition, transmutation, recycling, upcycling, and then ultimately metamorphosis into truth, and then simply being there as the only path forward. So happy growing and happy releasing, and thank you for being here.